Class of 2025's Caleb Wilson is down to just 5 schools in his recruitment, and Carolina thinks they're in great shape. Here's the problem. So do the other 4 schools.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Folks, you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making this your first listen or watch, and I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Check it all out at FanDuel.com. Special shout out as we get going today to all the everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course our Locked On Tar Heels insiders. What's up, everybody? Let's get going. Coming up on the show today, we're going to do some recruiting updates. It's been a little bit since we've talked about it, as we've really gotten now into the season where we actually have games and sports. It's glorious, but there just hasn't been quite as much opportunity to update on this. Well, we've had a little bit of movement with several of Carolina's basketball/football targets, and so I want to update you there and then just kind of give my look and thought about where things are at right now with recruiting, if I think we're in a good place and where things need to go. And then also, I don't know if you happen to watch Marquette and Purdue on Tuesday evening. There are some things that Marquette does with a very similar personnel to Carolina that I think the Tar Heels could take some defensive principles from. So we're going to talk about that and look at it at the end of the show. So here we go. Let's get into it. I've got updates on like 3 separate recruitments that Carolina has going on, where they're at, what's happening. And then, as I said, I'll give you my thoughts in the next segment on just kind of the state of recruiting right now. First one out of the gate is Caleb Wilson, who's class of 2025, top end 5-star elite recruit, as high as like 4 or 5, depending on which recruiting service you look at. Does a lot of things really well, very long, rangy, love what he brings to the table, love the commitment he's made to the defensive side of the ball lately, was in the Peach Jam Championship this year, along with several, played with the Boozer Twins and Knight Riders, and just is great, really impressive to me and love it. Well, on Monday, per Joe Tipton, Wilson announced that he is now down to 5 schools. That is, North Carolina makes the cut, as we expected to, along with Kentucky, Ohio State, Tennessee, and UCF. And so there's his quintet. It's interesting. Here's the thing with Caleb Wilson's recruitment. It is the biggest enigma to me. It feels like every fan base, all 5 of these, and probably some others that didn't make this cut, think they're in great shape with Caleb Wilson, because basically whatever school he's with, or coaches or fan base, he kind of plays to that crowd. And I don't mean that like in a like he's trying to lead people on or be duplicitous or anything nefarious like that. He's just got a way of making every fan base feel like they matter and that they've got a shot and that he's in on them. And so Carolina, I think the fan base would say, yeah, we think we're in a good spot with Caleb Wilson, but we've seen these Kentucky interviews and we think Kentucky probably thinks they're in a good spot with them, and so on and so forth. So it's really hard to know what to make of it. And I'm sure Ohio State, Tennessee, and UCF probably feel some of that too. That said, from all the groundswell and where things are at, it feels to me like if it's not Carolina or Kentucky, that it would be a major upset from one of those other 3 schools. I'd be shocked. And that's all due respect to Tennessee, Ohio State, and UCF. But I really think that it's one of those 2. Also, I love that Arkansas was in the running late for this thing, and they're not in there. They're not one of the top 5. And that's just weird to think about Coach Cal not being able to get in with somebody down all the way to the end. And so in some ways, it's with Caleb Wilson, it's kind of like, all right, I'm at this point where I'm like, homie, you got to poop or get off the pot here, because these programs need to kind of start figuring out what they're at and you're giving good signs, good mojo to several schools, and we need to know what's going on. So we'll see about announcement date and when that's coming and things like that. But right now, and again, this was as of Monday, those are the 5 schools that Caleb Wilson is cutting down to. How about AJ Dybantsa? There aren't many players ranked more highly than Caleb Wilson in the class of 2025, but AJ Dybantsa is one of them because he is the consensus number 1 player in this class. And, multiple schools are trying hard to get him, obviously. He reclassified down from 2026 and replaced Cam Boozer as the number 1 player in the class. And so that's really saying something because Cam Boozer is a dude, which stinks to have to say because he, along with his brother Cade, are going to Duke. But per Sherrell McMillan of Inside Carolina, 247, he is expecting a decision in the next month-ish from AJ Dybantsa. Remember, earlier this fall, at least, we were looking at like a January, February, and it might still be that, but month-ish from now is like, well, a month to the day is December 20th leading into Christmas. So that would be an interesting time to make an announcement. We'll see on that, but that's kind of where it's at. And I know so many people feel like this is a BYU thing, that BYU is going to get him or somebody else might sneak in. But in this era of NIL and all sorts of other stuff, it's just hard to read the tea leaves sometimes. And so it feels like Carolina is in at least a good enough place to have a shot at it. How much of one? Yeah, who knows still. But from listening to Sherrell McMillan for a while, he's somebody that is not going to say, hey, I think Carolina, kind of thinks they're still at least in this thing. He's not going to say that unless there's something legitimate to that. So with that optimism, I'd take it as a positive sign that Carolina's in there with AJ Dybantsa. And that's all you can ask for at this point in the game as things boil down. And then the third one is actually class of 2026, Kendre Harrison, who is 6'7", 250. He's the number 1 tight end in the class. You might remember that. And is a highly regarded basketball player as well, ranked in all the rankings for basketball, just not as highly as he is as a tight end in everything there. And so Kendre Harrison, the update on him is that he has announced his commitment date, and it's like 10 days away from, not like 10 days, it is 10 days away from now as you listen to or watch this on Wednesday, November 20th. So per Hayes Fawcett, who's like the Joe Tipton of football recruiting stuff, he is the one that said that Kendre is announcing on November 30th. Also, you know what day that is? That just so happens to be the day that Carolina is playing NC State in football. So it could be a very good day for the Tar Heels, a very bad day for the Tar Heels, or a very split in half one way or the other day for the Tar Heels. You know what I wish would happen? This would be cool. He's not considering NC State, but if he was, I wish he would come out and say, hey, whoever wins this football game today, I'm going to go to that school. Like how wild would that be? Now, again, he's not considering NC State because, well, yeah, but we don't know. As for the schools that are in the finalists, there are 6 of them, and I'd like you to listen to this and tell me whether you think football or basketball is going to matter more in this commitment. You ready? North Carolina, Oregon, Florida State, Miami, Penn State, Tennessee. That's right. Football is the number 1 thing first. He is a dual sport commitment, but it's football first. And it, probably should be from a ranking standpoint. I don't know what's in his heart of hearts about, which matters more. And sometimes that comes into play. It sounds right now like there's some Oregon traction, which is interesting because he really feels like a homebody. He's at Carolina all the time, shows up to football games, shows up to basketball games. But some smoke we heard this week sounds like Oregon. I know, there's the Nike money that's, they're going to do everything they can. In the Phil Knight money is deep. Obviously, Oregon's the number 1 football team in the nation right now. So there's a lot to that. But I'm going to continue to hope that the pull to stay home is very strong for Kendre. Also, With the football side of things, signing day is a big deal when everyone sends in their letters. And until that's officially and formally done, I don't know. Like football commitments flip all the time. And also, let's say he does pick Oregon. In this transfer portal era, you don't want to ever burn a bridge. You want to keep as many bridges built to the players you want as you possibly can. So if he's remember this year, he transferred high schools and then transferred back to his high school. There's a track record. There's a precedent for it with him. So maybe he does go to Oregon. Who's not to say he goes for a year and is like, that was fun. I want to go home. Come on, buddy. Open arms. We'd love to have you. Which I'll also say as a reminder to all of us, if and when he does announce his commitment, and if it's not to North Carolina, don't go tweeting boneheaded stuff at him that's going to leave a sour taste in his mouth. Tell your friends, if Kendre Harrison commits to Oregon or Penn State or somebody else, don't go bad mouthing him. Say, man, good luck out there. When you're ready to come home, we're ready for you. Right? Like that's the message you want to send to this young man. So just keep that in mind when he does announce, if it's not to Carolina. If it's to Carolina, hey, deal's done and let's make that happen. So there you go. There's updates on there's 3 guys. So with that said, where are things at with recruiting right now? How desperately do we need or want these 3 fellas, and how much does it matter? I'll update that and my thoughts on it coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Mint Mobile. Y'all, I love a great deal as much as the next guy. Like seriously, when I'm ordering something online, I'm always trying to find if I can get a coupon code or something like that. But look, I'm not going to go like bungee jumping for you to give me a few bucks off, because I'm deathly terrified of bungee jumping, by the way. There's a lot of things, like there's probably not much I wouldn't try or do. Bungee jumping is one of them. Yikes. If you want me to save a few bucks, it's got to be easy. I don't want to have to jump through a bunch of hoops. I don't want to do all your stuff. So when Mint Mobile said, hey, look, Isaac, it's easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Well, it turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. Honestly, the longest part of the process is probably going to be breaking up with your previous cell phone provider. So to get started, just go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. And there you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Here's what's really cool. You can continue to use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. You can bring your phone number along. You can bring your contacts along. It's great because that's one of my biggest fears if I'm switching. Find out how easy it is to do so at Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Again, mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. It's $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slow, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, we're talking some recruiting here on Hump Day on Wednesday. Just looked at updates on AJ Dybantsa, on Caleb Wilson, who's just recently announced his top 5, on Kendre Harrison, class of 26. The other 2 guys are 25, who announced that he's going to be announcing his recruitment on November 30th. So here's where I'm at with all of this with recruiting right now. Remember, keep in mind, basketball-wise, for the class of 25, I've already got Derek Dixon and Isaiah Dennis. Nice gets, both guards. Nobody in the class of 26 yet. Obviously, that's kind of crazy to think about. But I do think for the class of 25 that there's more needed for the Tar Heels, whether it's from these high school ranks or the transfer portal or a combination of both. I think the Tar Heels are going to be losing several guys this year, whether it's to eligibility exhaustion, like RJ Davis, Jalen Withers, who won't have any more after this year, or whether it's to guys leaving for the NBA, like whomever that may be, whether that's Elliot Cadeau continuing to do the crazy things he's doing so far this year, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, those guys heading off after their freshman year. So, the good thing is, in this day and age, you don't have to freak out if you don't land all the puzzle pieces that you are looking for from the high school ranks, because the portal can help you plug those holes. and with an experienced player who you've already seen do the thing that you need them to come in and do. And I know there's schools that are in the early years here of the transfer portal adopting different philosophies. Some, like for example, Marquette and Purdue, the only two teams in the country, or the only two high major teams, I should say, in the country that didn't take anyone in the transfer portal this year. So some are just strictly doing it through high school and development. Others are like, you know what, we're just going to make a new team just about every year through the transfer portal. You got to figure out what's right for you and lean into it. But that said, I think it's wise to not ever become overly reliant on the portal. Thus far, it's had just about anything you could want on the menu. But as we get to like next year and the 5th year of COVID eligibility is gone, what's it look like? How does it change? Are you still able to find everything you could want and need in the transfer portal? How much do you have to pay to get these young men versus how much you have to pay for the younger guys coming out of high school? Like all of that is a factor. But I don't want to become too reliant on transfer portal guys, especially guys that only have 1 year of eligibility. Now, if it's like a freshman that's transferring into his sophomore year and has 3 years of eligibility, absolutely bring it on, right? That's a different conversation. But yeah, right. Like that's the thing of where it's at right now. So I would like to get a couple more high school guys and work at developing them. For example, I don't know if you no free ads for other podcasts, but Inside Carolina podcast, like the one that Scott Jones Angel and Adam Lucas on it, did an interview this week with Tar Heel freshman big man James Brown. I was wildly impressed by this young man. Hadn't heard like an in-depth interview like this, with just his humility of coming in and learning, knowing that he's behind the Jae'lyns right now and Venn, and saying like, not that I don't want my turn. I got bigger plans, but I know that I'm learning right now, and I can humbly sit and wait my turn. Like, I feel like you don't hear many dudes saying that right now. And if you can find guys like that are down to wait their turn and grow, UConn's figuring that out in some ways. Obviously, Marquette and Purdue are, and that's great. And so I was really proud of James Brown. But then also you look at like, Carolina had a lot of conversations with the Duthiero. I really thought he was going to come to Carolina. Now he's been Arkansas's leading scorer in 3 of their first 4 games. And so that, that would kind of make you feel really different about losing Harrison Ingram. Like a Duthiero felt like almost like plug and play for Harrison Ingram, but he's at Arkansas. He's not a Tar Heel. As for Dybantsa and Wilson, as I just look and think about where this is at, I big fan of both of these young men. I would love to have them both. I think they would be great additions and great players to round out the class of 2025 and really set things apart. Because with Dixon and Dennis in the fold right now, you've got a solid class, a solid core, but you really want elite guys to fill it out like Ian and Drake are this year. And then guys like James Brown this year who can grow and develop. Because I don't think it's that, with some guys you say, I just don't see it ever. With James Brown, like the whole thing this summer with him for me has just been, I don't think he's ready immediately to step in and be a major contributor. And you see the difference in that. And so you want guys like Dixon and Dennis who might be ready to do a few things their freshman year, but guys you're going to develop a little bit and be better sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But you got to sprinkle that in with your Marvin Williamses, right? And I think that both Wilson and Dybantsa have some of that. They do different things, and that's kind of fun. But man, they would really launch things for this Carolina class. I would take one of them, either of them. I think they both bring great stuff. But landing either of these fellows would take you from a solid class to a high-level elite class. Because to me, it's not necessarily like if I'm making a trade in fantasy football, I don't care about having more guys. I care about having the best guy. And so I don't even really care about how many you land. I care about having the best ones. And so bring me both of these guys, both of whom would bring great things to Carolina. As for Kendre Harrison, this one's a little bit confusing to me. I don't understand the rush. He's class of 2026 heading in. So he's in his junior year right now. Why not wait in this day and age where transfer portal stuff's changing all the time, who's available and who's out of school is changing all the time? Why not wait? Take a bunch of visits this summer heading into your senior year and then commit. That just seems to make more sense. I especially don't get it if it's about going to the West Coast out. If he is going to commit to Oregon, like it seems odd to me to commit this early. Now, if he's staying home and it's like, man, I'm just going to be here, I might as well go ahead and commit. That honestly makes more sense to me to go ahead and commit, because then you can be around the program more, really talk and figure out who you're going to be. What do I need to be doing? All that kind of stuff. As I said earlier, he's at UNC all the time already anyway. And the truth, though, is that we recognize with him, as I said earlier, that because of his status as the top tight end in the nation for the class of 26, football is going to come first. And I mean, it might even get to the point where he drops basketball. I don't know, I don't know. But he's got a lot of potential, and I'd love to have him. Also, I haven't really thought about this until a player of his caliber, the same would have been true back in the day, like if Julius Peppers, if NIL was going. How is this going to work with collectives with, if he goes like Carolina now has kind of consolidated their collective efforts under Oldwell management, but how does that work with money coming from basketball and football and all that? Very interesting. So I don't really get the Kendre Harrison timing. Maybe we'll understand that more when he announces his commitment. But with Wilson and Dybantsa, again, come on, man, bring them both. And that would be great for Carolina. I'm curious to see if Hubert Davis misses on both of these guys, if they would continue to look at the high school ranks or just say, you know what, we're good. We're going to stand pat and we'll see what the transfer portal can do for us when we know who's coming and who's going and all of that. Okay, so that's recruiting. I want to turn my attention to defense, which last year was Carolina's calling card as the season wore on. Early this season, it seems like they're going to be a juggernaut of an offensive team, and the defense is still a work in progress, trying to figure out the identity there. And oh man, as I watched Marquette on Tuesday night, I was reminded of something from last year that makes me think that Marquette might have a little bit of a defensive blueprint that the Tar Heels could follow to big success this season. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Skylight Frames, you guys, here's the deal. We're just shy of a month away from Christmas, and if you're not thinking about gifts already, man, now is the time. Maybe you're one of those people that you just struggle to find the right gift, and you're tired of wasting money on useless stuff that that person's not going to use, and you'd rather just say, here, take my cash, right? Well, I want to tell you about something that my family has bought for my in-laws in the past that I think is a great option that is applicable to anyone, right? It's called Skylight Frame, and it's a touchscreen digital photo frame that your whole family will love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and just watch them appear in seconds. Like, you don't have to be physically present. Seamless sharing is great. You can invite friends and family to share photos via the app or email, whatever you want to do. There's no subscription required. It's easy to do. You can add new photos literally straight from your phone from anywhere. It's just like uploading it anywhere else. It only takes a tap on your phone to send a few of those across the country or world or whatever you're trying to do. It's a great, fast, easy way to keep your loved ones in the loop. Gift mode makes it a very meaningful, personalized gift. You want to try that out. You can preload it with memories without even opening the box, meaning as soon as your loved one pulls this out and unwraps it, it's got a whole bunch of preloaded photos in there. Super easy and a great way to be a nostalgic gift for them. So, and now there's a special limited time offer for our listeners. You can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. Again, that's skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase right now at skyframe.com/college. This episode is also brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can place a $5 bet, and if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game. Well, you can go check out the live play-by-play, view the latest stats, and so much more on the same page right there where you place your bets. Football Tar Heels travel up to Boston College this weekend. They're 2.5-point favorites over the Eagles. Take that. The men's basketball team plus 400 to win Maui. They have the third best odds behind UConn and Auburn. So if you want to get in on that action or any of the other great stuff that's out there, go check it out at FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch. Go make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On Tuesday night, the premier game, really the only game of much note, was Purdue playing at Marquette. Purdue had just had a big win over Alabama at home this weekend, and then Marquette just straight up crushed Purdue in a rematch of last year's Maui Invitational Championship game. And this reminded me as I watched this game of how much I loved watching Marquette in the Maui Invitational last year, because they played quite similarly to what Carolina's doing this year. Tyler Kolek, great true point guard. And then they had Oso Ighodaro, who's a really good big man, but he's a little bit undersized, does a lot of things well. But Marquette, under Shaka Smart, plays this not like a frenetic pace. It's not crazy up and down, but they're so like disruptive and frustrating defensively because they're always moving, got stuff going on. They had a great plan for Zach Edey. Purdue still ended up winning that game, but I think it was just by like 2 or 3 points. And it was just, I remember watching Marquette, not just in that game, but throughout Maui, and just being like, man, I'm like enamored by this team. I love what they do, and I love how they play defense. I noticed a quote on Twitter on Tuesday evening from Kevin Sweeney, who writes for Sports Illustrated. And here's what he said early, about 12 minutes into the Purdue Marquette game. He said, most notable stats so far in Purdue Marquette is 0 paint points through more than 12 minutes for Purdue, the Boilermakers. Marquette doesn't have a traditional rim protector, but its activity and ball pressure has been, all caps, elite. And again, that's Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated. A couple things that's interesting about this to me, and then I want to talk about how I think Carolina could apply it. The idea of Purdue not having any points in the paint in 12 minutes is insane to me. Yes, Zach Edey's gone, but here's the thing. We've known all like from the minute Zach Edey was going to be gone, that Trey Kaufman-Renn was just going to step right in and follow in his footsteps. Trey Kaufman-Renn was a dude against Alabama on Friday. You know they got Cliff O'Morey coming at him, right? No, it doesn't matter. Trey Kaufman-Renn killed it. But here's the deal. As Kevin Sweeney said, Marquette, despite the fact that they don't have a traditional, just standard rim protecting big, they were able to make life just kind of a hell for Purdue on Tuesday night in this game. Again, no paint points through the first 12 minutes plus of the game. Why? Because Marquette is finding ways to be active and use elite ball pressure. And that is exactly what I remember Marquette doing against Purdue last year in the Maui championship game. And Carolina, I feel like, is pretty similar in this. And it's not that, it's not that Marquette is never going to get any blocks. They're going to, right? Because they're uber athletic and they can time it and do things like that. But I'm also not saying that Brendan Haywood is back there waiting to just ruin your shot. So if that's the case and you don't have a Brendan Haywood or a John Henson or somebody in that vein who's going to be able to do those things to constantly and consistently divert shots at the rim, what can you do? Stop them before they get there. You got to do the work early. I think about Leaky Black is a great example of this. The players that get attention as defensive players of the year or making all defensive teams or players that have the numbers, blocks and steals and things like that. But to the discerning just box score looking eye, it's the guys like Leaky Black that do their defensive work early so they don't have to rely on blocks, so they don't have to rely on steals. Sure, they can when they need to, but Leaky's early work allows him to get ready to be in position to use his footwork to do his defensive work so that he doesn't need those counting stats. And so, as you think about this, can Carolina do this? Could they, as Kevin Sweeney said, utilize elite activity and elite ball pressure to frustrate and fluster their opposition, before they even get to the rim? Like, get upstream. If you're having a problem fishing downstream because somebody's catching all the fish upstream, you got to go further up and do it. I don't know if that analogy works, but it pops into my head in real time. So what do the Tar Heels have? Can they do this? Do you remember where their strength is? It's in the backcourt with the 3G starting lineup of Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, and Seth Trimble. But beyond that, you've got a freshman in Drake Powell who loves defense, who's so versatile and long and lengthy that he can do that. Ian Jackson, who clearly wants to be doing that well. You've got other guys. You've got some of the bigs that just, they're not traditional bigs, but they're guys that can move and shuffle and do what you need them to do. And so Carolina has the ability to wreak havoc on an opposing offense. They just need to do it. And I wonder, part of this we've speculated, like, is Carolina holding any defensive cards close to the chest right now that they might roll out at just such an appropriate time? Perhaps so. But I think that Hubert Davis and the staff, there's a lot to be learned from how Shaka Smart and Marquette are playing defense without a traditional rim protecting big, because that is the state of affairs for the Tar Heels this year. And I think they need to do it. Also, we got to recognize this is hard from a fan base standpoint. People aren't used to watching this. And so there was all the offseason noise about, and I contributed to that noise. Oh man, is Carolina going to be okay in the front court because they don't have Armando Bacot or somebody? Well, then you just find something else to do. And I think this is the thing that they could do. And look, I'm not advocating for Carolina to run some kind of mimicky scheme, mimicky thing, like a Virginia defense, or if you're thinking football, like Georgia Tech's triple option that they used to run under Paul Johnson. I'm not advocating that Carolina go crazy, but I am advocating that they could do something to utilize their personnel to best help their defense. Because if Carolina doesn't defend, you've heard me talk about this now multiple times this week. If Carolina doesn't defend, they're not going to win at the level they want to. The offense is going to be there game in and game out because it's elite and it's incredible and it's fun to watch. But the defense has to continue to find their identity. And I think I may have just found one for them in the form of the Marquette Eagles. So there you go. We'll have to wait and see if some of that is what's going to happen. But man, we're getting close to Hawaii Friday night, and then Maui next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of which, as we get out of here today, I want to remind you, I'm going to be gone the later part of the week. So today's show is recorded in real time. Thursdays will be, but Friday's shows, for example, I'm having to pre-record because we're leaving on a little bit of a weekend getaway ahead of Thanksgiving. Next Monday's show is going to be pre-recorded. It's going to be a Maui primer, a Dayton primer. So no worries there. I'm going to have you ready, but I won't have the results of like Carolina at Boston College in football this week. I won't have the results of the Hawaii game, for example. We also won't do a live show right after the football game. The fun thing, though, is after Dayton, that's a late game Monday night. So what we're going to do for Tuesday's show is I'm just going to do a live show Tuesday morning. It's going to be a lot of fun. Would love for you to hop in and tune in with us. It'll be great. All right, guys, if you're not subscribed to the show on video and audio, make sure you do that so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels, man. Again, the reminder, we're trying to get to 10,000 YouTube subscribers in 3 years of the show. We're getting so close. If you're a regular and you haven't yet subscribed, I'm going to make a direct appeal to you. Would you go ahead and subscribe on YouTube? That'd be great. Thank you so much. Man, if you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, it's a great place for Tar Heels fans to be, to chat and talk about everything Tar Heels all the time, and just life, man. All sorts of great stuff in there. The link's in the show notes, and it's absolutely free to join. And if you want to go next level with Locked On Tar Heels, join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, where you get direct one-on-one access to me and lots of other great perks as well. And it's a great way to help support the show. That link is also in the show notes. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow. Coach Rob is going to join me. It'll be a lot of fun as always. But until then, peace.